I think that the school has been very open to having dialogue and working with the boys and myself and my husband as to address their individual learning styles. And I think that that's what is great about Sterling. They look at the boy and they see them as unique. They see them as that they all belong there, and they try to make sure that everyone feels included and that valued. And we go right back to those character traits about feeling like that they matter. And if you feel that you matter and you feel that you belong and you feel a connection to your school, then you show up as a learner.
Hi, I'm Danielle and I'm from Our Kids. I just spoke with Beth, the parent of 3 children who have attended Sterling Hall School. Beth shares her insight about each child's individual experience, how the school encouraged them to partake in activities outside of their comfort zones, and how Sterling Hall fosters an overall sense of personal growth, development, and builds a strong sense of community. Tell me a little bit more about Jack. I want to get to know his personality. So what are his likes and dislikes?
I would characterize Jack as a pretty well-rounded kid. He's got some interest in sports and academics, but I would say that overall he's just pretty happy-go-lucky and loves being around other people.
And what kind of learner is Jack?
That's an interesting question. I would say before he went to Sterling Hall, I would characterize him as a reluctant learner, somebody that was shy and in the classroom hesitant to raise his hand and engage in discussions, perhaps one that would fly under the radar because he was quiet. And then when he got to Sterling Hall in grade 5, it was like somebody turned on a light switch for him and he became engaged and an active learner, where he was keen to be at school, wanted to be there, really engaging with his teachers. He created strong bonds with all of the teachers at the school, the coaches, and then it all flourished from there. Like his academics went soaring and his commitment to the school, likewise. And then I would consider him to be a very different learner, somebody who was active and curious and engaged. And now I see him in grade 9 and he just continues to evolve. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see him on this new path.
Would you say that Sterling Hall contributed to Jack's personal growth and development as an individual?
Yes, most definitely. I would say that they tapped into him and they got to know him as a boy and got to know him as a learner and got to know him as really just an individual, and took that time to foster his interests and encourage growth. And without that, I don't think Jack would be the boy he is today. I think at Sterling Hall, he had an opportunity to take risks and try new things and explore new hobbies. For example, he took up knitting, which at Sterling Hall is called fiber arts, and he still talks about that today. He was challenged to try new pursuits in outdoors, different sports that he maybe wouldn't have tried before, including different things in education, right? Like poetry and examining poetry and looking at our world in a critical way and considering things from different lenses. All of those things the school really encouraged Jack to do. And I see that now he benefited from ways that I think 100% that came from the school and the educators. And I see him being a very different boy than he was before he got to Sterling Hall.
Can you explain the process that you went through to enroll him in Sterling Hall? Like, were you considering other schools as a viable option for him? And if so, why did you end up choosing this one particularly?
That's an interesting question, actually. Originally, we had planned to only move, we have 2 younger sons, and we were looking for a school for our other boys, in particular our youngest son. We were looking for a school that was centric on individual learners, that was creative, that was willing to think outside the box, that was willing to take risks, that had a very strong emotional component. It was really important to me that the boys be at a school that, if it was an all boys school, was very aware that boys have an emotional capacity as well, that it wasn't just hyper masculine and all about push, push, push and win at all costs. And when I walked into Sterling Hall, it was a warm environment that felt safe and that felt welcoming, and it had a strong community. And I loved the character development program and the character traits and focusing on how to be a really good person and how to grow as an individual. And I also just loved the attention to the academics and the individual. So I was really looking for my youngest son, who at that time was going into grade 1. And then when we went through the halls, my husband and I, we looked at each other and were like, how can we provide this opportunity to just one of our boys and not all of them? And after a lot of consideration and thinking about it, we decided to apply for all of our boys. And thankfully, there was room, and Jack was able to attend in grade 5.
And what was the application process like?
The application process at that time was a thorough written application, as well as an interview with the head of admissions. And that was an interview, very casual, and it spoke very much to what the school is about. It was friendly, it wasn't intimidating, it was welcoming. And I knew when we were even going through that process that that's exactly where I wanted to be, and that if it didn't work out that year, I wanted to pursue it continually. It was where I wanted my boys to be.
And did you feel like the school was adequate in adapting to each of your child's individual learning styles?
Yes, I think that the school has been very open to having dialogue and working with the boys and myself and my husband to address their individual learning styles. And I think that that's what is great about Sterling. They look at the boy and they see them as unique. They see them as that they all belong there, and they try and make sure that everyone feels included and that valued. And we go right back to those character traits about feeling like that they matter. And if you feel that you matter and you feel that you belong and you feel a connection to your school, then you show up as a learner. And when you show up as a learner, that's where the magic happens. And that's when the staff and the educators are able to do their job. But if you don't feel that you belong, and you don't feel that you're connected, and you don't feel that you're cared for, it's really hard to show up as a learner and show up and be curious. It's hard to be curious as a learner and put yourself out there and be vulnerable if you don't feel safe. And to me, Sterling Hall does an exceptional job of creating a safe learning environment, and their teachers go above and beyond doing that.
And if you can name one thing that you think each of your children liked the most about their experience at Sterling Hall, what do you think it would be?
Oh, well, my youngest would probably say recess, but I think that's characteristic of most young kids. No, in all honesty, I would say my youngest son, Will, has completely thrived in the extracurriculars, in particular the cross-country running and the sports and the house program and the spirit. He loves all of that. In the early morning clubs, one of his favorite clubs was the mindfulness club. He loved getting up really early, getting to school and doing that mindful meditation, which, you know, I learned a lot from him through that, which was really great. And he's made such connections with his teachers and his peer group. He is so excited to go to school and be with his crew, with his group. And I love that. I love seeing how excited he is to walk out the door. My middle son, Sam, I think is continually challenged academically to think outside the box and to be creative, and and he's constantly being challenged to push more. And the school sees that he's capable of more, and they push him. And I love that. And I think Sam loves it too. He probably doesn't love it every day. It's probably not what he would say is his favorite part, but I think he also loves the sense of independence that they give the boys, especially as they move through the divisions into the intermediate years. There's a lot more independence given to the boys, a lot more emphasis on leadership and development opportunities. And my middle son, being someone who is naturally a little bit more independent, he's thriving in that environment. And I love it too. It's like giving him a little bit more space and a little bit more rope. I think it's important in those early years to have that. So, and then Jack, I think it would be hard pressed for him to think about something he didn't love about Sterling Hall. The whole experience was so enriching for him. But I would say for sure, if he had to boil it down, it would be the connection to the teachers. He felt a really strong bond to his teachers, as well as he had some incredible extracurricular opportunities, like the service learning trip to Ecuador. He still talks about it, and he still talks about what how that changed his viewpoint on so many things. It was quite impactful.
Based on what I'm hearing from you about the school experience, it sounds like they do an incredible job at like realizing growth and potential and development of yourself as an individual, but also there seems like there's an aspect of giving back to the community.
Yeah, I think what for me, what I love about it is the principal often talks about they're building these boys for a future that doesn't exist. So yet, the future doesn't exist yet, right? These jobs don't exist yet. Who knows what jobs the boys will be doing in 30 years? Those jobs don't exist. Jobs today don't exist that were just, no one even thought about them when I was a kid. They were just fanciful. They were imagination. Like, who would have thought I would see the person I was talking to, like video telephones when I was 10 years old. Crazy nonsense. But that's what I think is so special about it, is when you take all that away, those academic building blocks that I think the school is wonderful at, it's when you boil it all down, it's about creating a boy that's confident, that's inquisitive, that's kind, that's compassionate, that's caring, and that's most of all not afraid to be vulnerable. And that's really special, right? Not afraid to take risks and listen to others and be empathetic. And that's the stuff that I think when you boil it all down, at the end of the day, the spelling, the reading, the writing, that's all going to be there wherever you go to school. You're going to run into that because these are all amazing educational institutions. But Sterling, this I think is special. I think it's like they always call it the secret sauce. And I think it's true. I think it's a really special thing.
What is one thing as a parent that you personally appreciate and like the most about your experience?
I like that they're learning to be good people. And I think when you couple that with what they're getting at home and our values at home, and then they're getting it at school, it's bookended. And I think that that's really important. I like that. I also love the parent community. I think it's just wonderful to feel a connection with a group of like-minded parents.
And I'm curious to know, every school has a list of values that they publish on their website or on paper, but you've witnessed firsthand what it's like to have your children enrolled in the school. So based on what you've witnessed, what would you say their values are in actual practice?
I would say that they align. They try their best to live up to what they put on paper, and when they fall short, they own up to it, and that's part of the learning process too. And that is part of character development, is taking that hard look at yourself and saying, this is where we can do better, and this is where we need to do better. And the school's quite open about that, and open about where they want to continue to grow and where they see themselves moving in the future. And that's all I think you can really ask for.
Was there anything about your experience there that you found surprising? Something that you might not have expected until you kind of put yourself into this private school experience, specifically with Sterling Hall?
I would say how kind everybody was and how welcoming everyone was. The parent community, I think, is exceptional in that it was embracing, and we just had a wonderful experience being welcomed into the community. When we first arrived, we had a parent buddy who welcomed us into the fold, and she made us feel like we belonged right from the get-go, right from I believe it was June, she called us and made us feel like we belonged at the school. And her son and Jack are off on their next school together, which is really nice. It's nice to see that they're still continuing their relationship.
So I want to ask you more about the school community. Can you explain what the relationship is like between the parents and the faculty? Do you feel like there's an open door policy and that they foster an environment where communication is welcomed?
Yeah, absolutely they do. There's a lot of communication between the faculty and the parents, or the staff and the parents. There is regular email communication. They encourage you to call. And I love that the school, when it's not COVID, you're welcome to come into the school and be in the hallways and be part of that fabric. On Friday mornings, they have assemblies where parents and grandparents are invited to come and watch and be part of the assembly and the community that way, as well as there's several events throughout the year, parent building activities and PA events. And I love that. I love that's an opportunity for parents to be involved and for the boys to see that that building a community goes beyond just them, that it's, if you want that community to be built, it has to be built by everyone, not just the teachers, not just the boys, but the parents too.
What about the relationship between students and other students? Is it welcoming, inclusive? Is it like social in the sense that they can build and maintain long-lasting friendships? What has your son's experiences been like?
Our sons have had really great experiences with the boys at the school. It's been welcoming. They've had great friendships. They've met all sorts of different boys, and they've had wonderful relationships building from those first few years, and they're continuing and growing as the years go on. And here we are, Jack's now moved into grade 9, and he still has some of those really close friends that he met in grade 5, which is nice to see. I would imagine that there's probably conflict amongst the boys, as that's pretty common with kids and with growing and part of maturing. But I also think that the school tries their best to facilitate good conflict resolution skills, because the conflict is part of life, and we can't always run away from conflict. We have to learn how to solve conflict, and we have to be healthy about it. So personally, we haven't experienced anything that is out of the ordinary, like pretty standard kid conflict stuff. And I've always been really happy with how the school's facilitated the boys in solving their own problems.
And what kind of extracurricular opportunities are available to the students?
Everything from your traditional sports to your clubs, and the clubs range from baking and cooking and knitting and mindfulness to, as they get a little bit older, a personal finance club. So there's a wide range there that appeals to kids from who are quite arty, or who maybe want to explore the arts. There's a drama club, and they put on a performance at the end of the year, to kids who are quite sporty. And then there's this, even within the sporty realm, there's competitive sports to just house league and wanting to play and have fun, more of general interest. So I like that. I like that it gives them a nice breadth.
Would you be able to share a fond memory that you had at the school?
I've had lots of wonderful memories at this school. Oh geez, it's hard to pick just one. I think my favorite time of the year at the school is the Terry Fox run. It's the Founders Day, and they incorporate that with the Terry Fox, and it's just really special to see alumni come out, family members come out, caregivers come out, grandparents, staff, returning staff. Everyone comes to the field and they congregate, and we run as a community, and it feels great. It's nice to see everybody and be out there and celebrate the start of a new school year, as well as an amazing Canadian hero.
What about in the realm of a school project or assignment that one or many of your sons have done? Was there anything particularly that you thought was pretty interesting and might have been unusual, but that you were surprised that they were doing?
I believe there was the rocket launch that the boys did that I thought was, that was interesting. I don't remember doing anything like that when I was that young and in school, which they were really into. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head because typically I find everything that they're doing quite interesting and interdisciplinary, which I really like. I like to see the crossover. Yeah, so nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
And we've talked a lot about positive aspects of the school, but I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. So if there was a weakness or an opportunity, let's say, for growth and development, what do you think that might be?
Well, everybody always wants it to go to grade 12, but that's not going to happen. So that's one thing. Really, honestly, nothing right now is coming to mind as something that I would say is glaringly obvious that the school needs to get better at. And I think if I'm being truthful, I think because the school is constantly taking stock of how can we improve and how can we make it better. So the whole time I've been there, there's been an evolution, like things are constantly moving and changing, and it hasn't felt stale. Like nothing's ever felt stale or old. Um, so I don't really know how to answer that. I'm not really sure how to come at that one. I'm sure, there are things that come up during the year that I kind of take back and think about it. But I also feel very comfortable going and speaking to the teachers or to the administration about any concerns that do come up that I do have. And I always feel very respected and in having those conversations. So in terms of something significant or big that concerns me, no, nothing.
Sounds like they have a very growth-oriented mindset, and the school community in itself is focused on continuous growth and development.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. So before we wind down and ask you my last couple questions, do you feel like there's any aspect of Sterling Hall that maybe I haven't asked you about or we haven't discussed that you think is important to mention?
I think one thing I'd love to mention that some people may look at Sterling Hall and see and as a con, for lack of a better word, when they're looking at schools and doing the comparison, because I know quite well what that's like as we search for a school for my elder son for grade 9. Sterling Hall does only go to grade 8, and so I know that some parents sometimes have a bit of or a reservation about putting their son at school for a school that only does go to grade 8 when there's other schools that go all the way to grade 12. One thing that I would say about Sterling Hall that they do very well is have a strong development program for the intermediate years. I think that it's quite special to have that 6, 7, and 8 years where those boys can be sort of leaders of the school, top dogs, and have these amazing leadership opportunities where they're matched with mentors and advisors that are in the faculty and the staff, and encourage them to take on leadership roles within the school. And every boy in grade 8 is assigned a leadership role. So every single boy has a responsibility at the school where the younger boys look up to them. And I think that is quite special and unique. I don't know if that happens anywhere else, but I love that. And I love that they have that opportunity in grade 6, 7, and 8, 7 and 8 in particular, to be the leaders and to have these like younger kids looking up to them and have a sense of responsibility, and also then take agency of their own future of where do they want to go to high school? What are they looking for in that next experience? Because there's a lot of change, personal change and growth in how they want to, I guess in their, maybe their educational experience or what kind of learner they are, how they learn best. And there's a lot of growth that happens between grade 5 and grade 8. There's a lot of growth that happens even between grade 7 and grade 8. So when they make that application for grade 9, a school that they may be looking at in grade 5 could be very different when it comes to high school. And I thought that Sterling did an exceptional job at helping my family to navigate that transition from grade 8 to grade 9, and helping us to identify some of our son's strengths and where they felt he would be most successful in his next chapter.
So overall, you feel like they were in great hands and they were prepared to take on the next step of their educational experience in terms of going into high school?
I felt that way, yes. Yeah.
And for parents who might be watching this interview who are considering sending their child to Sterling Hall, would you recommend it to them, and why or why not?
I would absolutely recommend it to them, but just like anything, I think you need to follow what is best for your son and for your family. It's a big decision. It's a big commitment. Sterling Hall is a destination school, so you have to keep that in mind. It's a lot of driving. There's families that come from all over the city and some outside the city, so you've got to keep that in mind when you're thinking about social engagements and kids having, especially younger kids, having play dates. Is that something that you see for your family? It's a big commitment in all around, right? If you're making that jump from public school to private school, it's a big jump. Financially, it's a big jump. Time-wise, it's a big commitment. I know a lot of kids have, I know from my family too, it was a big commitment to make that transition from public school to Sterling Hall in terms of the work commitment. It was very different. The days were much more structured. It was a lot more demanding on the boys, but they ended up thriving and they loved it. But it might not be the right fit for your family. So I would definitely encourage anyone who's thinking of applying to any independent school or private school to do your research, to think about what works best for your son, what kind of learner he is, where you think he or she would love to be every day and wake up and can't wait to be there. Because when you are making that time investment and that financial investment, you want them to love every minute that they're there. Yeah, that would be my advice. Like, take your time and really, really look around.
And for my very last question for you, if you were to pick up the phone and call your past self before embarking on this entire experience, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it.